you. Ms. Rush, any other witnesses?
Department calls Christina Gonzalez.
Okay. And Ms. Herring, I'm going to mute you, so don't panic if you see me do that, or at least I'm going to try.
I'll mute myself. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with your voice.
State your name and how you're currently employed.
My name is Christina Gonzalez. I am a CPS caseworker with Department of Family Protective Services.
And you're not an investigator, is that fair?
Correct.
However, on or about May 16th, were you informed of information that concerned you regarding Lydia?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, did you attempt to reach Mr. Poston?
Yes.
Okay. Had you found out by then or before then that Mr. Poston had what was originally thought to be a snake bite, but later found out to be flesh-eating bacteria?
Yes.
Okay. When did you find out, if you can remember?
I found out May 16th.
Is that when you discovered that Mr. Whitehead had been dropping off Lydia?
Yes.
Objection. I think anything that she discovered would be from hearsay, and so the basis of any statement she's making is from hearsay.
Except, Your Honor, there's an objection to hearsay considering it's been talked about for the last 3 or 4 hours in this. So it's already been admitted through other testimony.
I'm going to overrule that.
Okay. So, but that would have been about the same time.
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to, I'm sorry, and did you find out that Mr. Poston was somewhere in the Metroplex in a hospital?
Correct.
Okay. What hospital did you believe he was going to be in?
Initially, I believe in the Dallas area, Baylor, I believe.
Did you later found out that's not where he was? He was at Presbyterian.
Yes.
Were you able to get a phone number on him?
I'm
sorry, a room number, not a phone number, a room number.
No.
Do you recall about how many times you called or texted Mr. Poston before the removal?
I called him once and texted him once.
Okay. Were you able to send a voicemail?
Yes. When I called him, I left a voicemail.
Okay. Your affidavit says you couldn't leave one because his mailbox was full. So were you able to leave one, or are you misremembering?
I'm misremembering.
Okay. Were you able to leave a text?
Yes.
Okay. At which point did Mr. Poston ever respond to those?
He responded approximately 6 p.m. that evening.
May 16th?
Yes.
Okay. And that would have been after the removal?
Correct.
Do you remember if he responded through the phone or through a text?
He called me.
Okay. What did he tell you when he called you after the removal?
He called me and told me that he was at Presbyterian. He was air flighted there.
Did he say anything about Mr. Whitehead?
I asked him who Lydia is with, and he stated he left him with Matt Whitehead.
Did you say that Mr. Poston? We're going to back up. There are a lot of he's. Okay, so are you saying Mr. Poston said Mr. Poston left Lydia with Mr. Whitehead?
Yes.
You said he left, and there was a lot of he's. Okay, and was that the term he used, left?
Yes.
Did you discuss whether or not there were other options with Mr. Poston?
I asked Mr. Poston if he remembered my concerns with Mr. Whitehead, and he stated yes. And I asked him why he didn't leave.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. So had you and Mr. Poston discussed Mr. Whitehead previously to May 16th?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall about when that would have been? Like the month?
February was the first time.
2023?
Yes.
Was that after Ms. Herring had gotten arrested for a meth charge? You got to let me finish. For a meth charge?
Yes.
Okay. And when you were discussing that with Mr. Poston, were you discussing Amber's meth charge?
Yes.
Did you tell him that Mr. Whitehead was driving the car when that happened?
Yes.
What was his response? Mr. Poston's response?
Mr. Poston stated that he didn't know that.
So do you recall why you brought it up?
I was asking Mr. Poston if he knew this gentleman, and he
Mr. Whitehead?
Yes, and he declined knowing who Mr. Whitehead was.
Did he later tell you that he believed Mr. Whitehead was Amber's cousin?
He told me on May 15th during an unannounced home visit when I seen his.
Okay. Do you mean May 15th or do you mean March 15th?
May 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Remember, the judge will tell you I'm very hard of hearing. I tell you I'm a little hard of hearing. So May 5th, before the snake bite thing, right?
Correct.
So did you on May 5th discuss with Mr. Poston anything else about Mr. Whitehead being with Amber when she was arrested for methamphetamines in February?
Yes, he was told that I've seen that car parked at Amber Herring's house multiple times.
Okay. Do you mean her apartment?
Her apartment, yes.
Okay. And what was his response? Is that when he told you it was a cousin?
Yes.
Okay. At any point, did y'all discuss Mr. Whitehead's criminal history?
Not at that time.
Okay. Wait a minute. When did you discuss the criminal history with Mr. Poston?
I believe in February when I first mentioned him.
Did you tell him that did you tell Mr. Poston that Mr. Whitehead had been arrested for a possession charge? At some point.
At some point, but I don't remember the date.
Okay. Did you tell him that before the removal? Did you tell Mr. Poston about Mr. Whitehead's arrest before the removal?
Yes, it would have been before.
Okay. And what was Mr. Poston's response to you telling him that?
Mr. Poston had claimed to not know Mr. Whitehead and only admitted to knowing Mr. Whitehead on May 5th, whenever I did the unannounced visit.
I didn't ask that well. When you said Mr. Poston, Mr. Whitehead got arrested did you tell Mr. Poston Matthew Whitehead was on probation?
No.
Okay. So when you said, Aaron, Mr. Whitehead's been arrested for drugs, for meth, and he was with Amber in February when she got arrested.
Objection. I don't think the testimony was that she said that he had advised that he was had been arrested for meth. I think it was just a narcotics charge or possession charge is the way that Ms. Rush had asked it. So
I'll rephrase.
Going to sustain your objection and ask you to rephrase, Ms. Rush.
Did you tell Aaron what kind of drugs Matt got arrested for?
No, I don't believe I did.
Okay. Did you use the word drugs?
Yes.
Okay. So when you told Aaron that Matt got arrested for drugs and he had been with Amber in February when Amber got arrested for meth, what was Mr. Poston's response? What did he say about that?
He said he didn't know. Okay. He didn't know this.
Okay. Did he ask you any questions like what drugs?
No.
Did he say anything about, oh my heavens, I should not let that man around my child?
No. He just...
When you spoke to Mr. Poston after the removal, did he mention the bushes?
He did mention a couple, and I believe it was the bushes. I was driving, so...
Okay, and what did he tell you about the bushes?
I believe he stated that initially the plan was for Lydia to be with the bushes, but he ended up leaving Lydia with Mr. Whitehead.
Did Aaron tell you why he left Lydia with Matt?
He stated that he had no idea he was going to be care-flighted out.
So you would agree with his testimony from the previous hearing that we had last week, that Aaron really didn't think this was going to be a long-term thing until he ended up having multiple surgeries, right?
Yes.
Okay. At any point, Ms. Herring made any complaints, just yes or no to you regarding the care of Lydia in foster care?
No.
At any point, has Mr. Poston made any complaints to you about the care of Lydia in foster care?
No.
Just yes or no, has Lydia made any complaints to you about her care in foster care?
No.
You don't dispute that she misses her mommy and daddy, right?
Right.
The ex parte order did not include in order for Lydia to have a drug test. That is correct, right?
Yes.
So you're understanding that a doctor at her 3-day visit suggested that she have a drug test.
Objection, hearsay.
I'm going to overrule that.
As a medical consider, you've got to know things like that, right?
Well, just so the record's clear, Judge, regardless of whether or not she's a medical consider, if she is repeating what a doctor tells her, that is hearsay. What the doctor told Ms. Gonzalez, and Ms. Gonzalez was not told this. It's not hearsay for purposes of medical treatment. Ms. Gonzalez is not the one undergoing any sort of medical treatment.
I just want a yes or no.
I'm going to overrule your objection, Mr. Stilson.
Just yes or no. Did the doctor recommend a drug test?
Yes.
Is it your understanding a drug test was taken, but results are not back?
Yes.
Just yes or no. Do you know if it was a UA or a hair?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you believe there was an immediate danger to Lydia that caused you to ask for this removal with court orders?
Because Mr. Poston knew about the concerns the department had with Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Poston was aware that Mr. Whitehead was seen at Amber's residence a couple of times and associated with Amber. And so it's concerning to me that he would allow Lydia to be with Mr. Whitehead in Mr. Whitehead's care.
Okay.
Sure.
At the time of the removal, Mr. Poston was still in Presbyterian, right?
Correct.
And at that time, you did not actually have a discharge date as far as you knew, right?
Right.
Okay. Are you well aware of Ms. Herring's current criminal charges as well as her criminal history?
Yes.
Have you asked her multiple times or any time about her rehab at Nexus? Ms. Herring, I'm sorry.
Ms. Herring was not returning my calls. I haven't talked to her since before March 17th. And then she did contact me on May 16th, the day of the removal. So I wasn't able to ask her previous to May 16th, the day of the removal.
And what did she say on May 16th about her rehab?
She stated that she did admit herself into Nexus and was there for an amount of time that she couldn't tell me, but ended up leaving early because her grandmother fell sick and then passed away.
Did she talk to you anything about the removal itself and when she had or had not seen Lydia?
Yes, we talked about the removal as she was served the paperwork.
This is a dumb question, I'm sorry, but did you actually do the removal itself? You know what I mean? Like pick the kiddo up?
Yes.
Where was the kiddo when you picked her up?
At daycare.
Okay. Were they doing their little graduation?
They were doing it that evening.
So you picked her up before the graduation?
Yes.
Did you at any point see Amber?
During the removal? No.
That day, May 16th?
Yes, I seen her that evening.
And where did you see her that evening?
She agreed to meet me at a Dollar General store.
Okay. Did she tell you anything about what she had planned to do regarding Lydia's graduation?
She was upset that I picked Lydia up when she was supposed to graduate that evening.
Did Amber tell you she'd planned to attend?
Objection, Lee.
It doesn't suggest an answer. It's just a yes or no question.
I'm going to overrule that. You can answer that, Ms. Gonzalez.
And all I'm asking is a yes or no. Did she tell you? Okay.
Okay. Y'all are both still talking over each other. I need, Ms. Gonzalez, I need you to let Ms. Rush ask the question. You need to answer. And Ms. Rush, I need you to let Ms. Gonzalez answer the question before the next one, please.
Yes, ma'am. And I worded that badly. Because that no means a couple of things. Did Ms. Herring say, I planned to attend the graduation, or did she say, I did not plan to attend the graduation, or did she not discuss it at all?
She did not discuss it at all.
Okay. Do you believe there's a continuing danger to return the child? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's back up a minute. You were present when Ms. Herring testified about what a good guy Mr. Whitehead is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Does it concern you that she thinks he's a good guy when he apparently lied about why he's on probation?
Yes.
Does it concern you she thinks he's a good guy when he's apparently lied to his probation officer about where he's living?
Yes.
Based upon everything about Ms. Herring, can you tell us why it's a continuing danger to return Lydia to Ms. Herring?
Amber has been arrested for methamphetamines twice in the last 3.5 months. Amber has...
Objection. I think that assumes facts not in evidence, Your Honor. The testimony previously was that she was arrested once for a new offense and the other time was for a bond forfeiture. So I think that that's an incorrect statement and assumes facts not in evidence.
Ms. Herring testified she has 5 pending felonies.
I'm going to overrule that. I'm going to overrule that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christina.
Ms. Herring has not responded to my attempts at reaching her through email, text messaging, and phone calls several times since March 17th. I have requested multiple drug tests through these means. Ms. Herring stated that she received my attempts and was planning on calling me, but just hasn't. My concerns is that Ms. Herring has not participated in any services to address our concerns. She hasn't cooperated with the department, and based on my conversations with Lydia, it's my
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustained. You cannot discuss your conversations with Lydia.
Without going into what Lydia said, do you have concerns, just yes or no, based upon your conversations?
Yes.
Okay. Regarding Mr. Poston, now he's no longer in the hospital, right?
Yes.
Why do you believe there's a continuing danger to return Lydia to Mr. Poston?
Mr. Poston has completed substance abuse counseling. He's completed online substance abuse counseling and to recognize signs of use. And it's concerning that Mr. Poston is not concerned with Ms. Herring's recent arrest. He doesn't appear that there's any concerns with placing his daughter with a man that he's met 4 to 6 weeks ago, who is also affiliated with Ms. Herring.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to misstatement. There's no previous testimony that he placed this child with Mr. Whitehead. The testimony before this court is that Mr. Whitehead took the child to daycare.
The testimony before this court is that Mr. Poston told Christina he left the child with Mr. Whitehead.
I'm going to overrule the objection. The court is aware of the testimony.
And I understand, Christina, that it's conflicted, but that weighs into your opinion, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any problems with the Bushes?
No.
I mean, if Aaron had left Lydia with the Bushes, would that have been a problem?
No.
Were you present when Mr. Poston talked about how he doesn't have any issue with Ms. Herring?
Yes.
And were you present when he testified the reason he hasn't let Ms. Herring around is because there's a court order?
Yes.
Is that a concern?
Yes.
I believe he testified that he and Mr. White have been in business since about April. Is that what you remember?
No.
Okay. Do you recall, or what does your memory say? They've been in business together since when?
He didn't disclose that they were in business together at all.
Okay. During this hearing, do you recall that he said that they started a garage door company, or he started working with them or financed him or something in April 2023?
Yes.
Okay. But that he hasn't seen anything that indicates Mr. Whitehead's been doing drugs around him. Is that a concern?
Yes.
Are you asking the court to order that continue the department as temporary managing conservator?
Yes.
Originally, the status hearing was set for like next week. Are you asking the court if the department is continuing as temporary managing conservator to reset that because logistically the family plan of service meeting and stuff can't be held in time to file the family plan of service at least 5 days before June 16th?
Yes.
Okay. Are you also asking the court to name the parents temporary possessory conservators and place them both under orders?
Yes.
To order the child to have a hair test, which would include fentanyl and an expanded opioids panel?
Yes.
To order both parents to undergo hair tests and UA before any visitation occurs?
Yes.
Based upon some of your conversations, would you agree with me? You've never had any indication that Mr. Poston is himself doing drugs. Is that fair?
Yes.
Are you asking for the hair test to see if he's been exposed through Amber?
Yes.
You've already finished one home study, right?
I didn't complete a home study.
The big U, the department has completed and filed a home study, right?
2 Engage has.
Yes. And that's with, I believe, the adoptive uncle of a half sibling of Lydia. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I don't have dealings with that.
Okay. And is it your understanding that now Miss Herring and Mr. Poston, if the department is continued as temporary managing conservator, wants this Miss Gardner test done a home study on?
Yes.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, I want to focus on a couple of things. First of all, I just want to make crystal clear for the reason for removal. So the danger to the physical health or safety of this child when you removed Lydia was what?
My concerns were...
No. I'm sorry. What is the danger? Not your concerns, not speculation. What was the danger to the child?
The danger was that she was with someone that was on probation for being in possession of methamphetamines.
Okay, so that's the reason. That's the physical danger. I want to make sure that the record's crystal clear. Your physical danger that you removed is because she was with someone who was on probation for drugs. That's your reason.
And I believe that Mr. Whitehead is affiliated with Amber Herring.
Okay, so Matt Whitehead affiliated with Mr. Herring, apparently, and that is so Matt Whitehead being affiliated with Amber Herring is a danger to the physical health or safety of Lydia. That's your testimony today.
Yes.
Okay. And those are the two reasons. I just want to make sure that those are the two reasons that you removed. Those were your dangers.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. So we've got one, that she was with somebody who was on probation for drugs. And two, Matt Whitehead is, quote, affiliated with Amber Herring. What evidence do you have? Well, first of all, there's testimony. You were present in court when there was testimony that Matt Whitehead picked up Amber Herring from the bushes and took her to daycare, correct? I'm sorry, picked up Lydia from the bushes and took her to daycare, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you actually take possession of Lydia?
May 16th.
Okay. So May 16th was, just so that we're all on the same page, was Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Okay. And aside from Matthew Whitehead picking up this child from the bushes and taking her to daycare, what other evidence do you have? Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe that he had any other unsupervised contact with this child after May 12th of 2023?
Yes.
Okay, so aside from picking up the child or dropping the child off from daycare, you believe he had unsupervised access to this child after May 12th?
Yes.
From May 12th to May 16th. Okay. And what was that other time?
The entire time is what I was assuming.
You were assuming.
Yes.
Okay. And so your assumption, I just want to make sure. So your assumption is that Matthew Whitehead had unsupervised access to this child from starting when?
It was unclear of when.
No, you're the one who removed this child.
Yes.
So when did you believe that to be true? When do you believe that he had unsupervised access to this child? You said it was a period of time. When did it start?
At least May 16th.
So May 16th?
And May 15th.
Okay. All right. And the unsupervised access that he had to this child, did it constitute anything other than him taking this child to and from daycare?
Can you please rephrase that?
Yes. You said that Matt Whitehead had unsupervised access to this child on May 15th and May 16th.
Yes.
That was your testimony. You removed the child on May 16th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's stick with May 15th. When did Matt Whitehead have unsupervised access to this child? Not the possibility, the actual possession of this child.
May 15th. I don't have specific times.
What was he doing?
I don't know what he was doing. I was told that she was with Mr. Whitehead.
Okay. So you don't know, is it fair to say you don't know what possession Mr. Whitehead had, if any, to Lydia beyond the testimony that we've had today, that she was picked up and dropped off to daycare under Matt Whitehead?
It was objection. He asked how she knew. She said she was told. He then jumped in because he was, I'm sure, going to make a hearsay objection. However, He asked the question and he's stuck with the answer.
No, Your Honor, she's not allowed to give a hearsay answer. No, she's not allowed to give a hearsay answer. I would object to hearsay, but I didn't have to because I cut her off and stopped. So no.
However, Your Honor, if someone says, "How do you know?" and your response is, "Someone told me," you're stuck with the answer. She didn't go into why. She just had been told that Mr. Whitehead had access.
I'm not sure what the objection actually is, Judge.
Okay. I'm going to cut y'all both off. It's 4:50 and everybody's getting a little bit jumpy here. I'm not going to abstain or sustain or overrule that objection. I'm just going to ask you to ask the question because I got lost in there somewhere.
Okay.
So, and I apologize, but Mr. Stilson, if you will ask the question again.
I will rephrase and try to make it shorter, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Ms. Gonzalez, let's exclude on May 15th the time that Matt Whitehead picked up and dropped off Lydia. Okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. How many times do you personally know, not what you've been told, do you personally know, did Matt Whitehead have unsupervised possession of this child on May 15th?
I'm not understanding that question.
You just told this court that Matt Whitehead had unsupervised possession of the child on May 15th. Are you with me so far? And you would agree that was your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Let me maybe ask it this way. The only reason you believe that to be true is because someone else told you that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to the Bushes?
No.
Did you know, when did you learn that Lydia had stayed from May 12th over that weekend with the Bushes?
During the last court hearing we had.
Okay. What was your belief before hearing that testimony about where Lydia was staying?
It was my belief that she was in the possession of Matt Whitehead, May 15th and May 16th.
Okay. So when you filed this petition, all right, and you signed your affidavit, who did you believe had possession of Lydia on May 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th?
I didn't know.
Okay. All right. The times that Matt Whitehead picked up and dropped off Lydia, all right, we're focused on those questions. Okay. What evidence do you have that he was intoxicated during that time?
I have no evidence.
Okay. You indicated to this court that you had expressed some concerns about Mr. Whitehead to Mr. Poston before, we'll say, May 12th. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. When did you seek to modify the family plan or court order to bar Mr. Whitehead from having unsupervised possession or access to Lydia? When did you do that?
That was not needed. As Mr. Poston stated, he didn't even know Mr. Whitehead.
Okay. So is it fair to say you didn't?
I had no reason to.
Okay. When do you believe that Aaron got out of the hospital?
Somewhere around May 26th.
Okay. And what reasonable efforts did you make on May 26th and afterwards to enable the child to return home?
I didn't make any efforts. That's not.
Thank you. And as we sit here today on June 6th, what is the substantial risk of a continuing danger if Mr. Poston just agrees not to let Mr. Whitehead around this child?
My concerns are that Mr. Poston appears more concerned.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify my question. I don't want your response to be vague concerns. I want to specifically ask what the substantial risk of a continuing danger is if Mr. Poston got Lydia back today and just agreed not to have Mr. Whitehead around the child.
I don't believe that Mr. Poston would follow that agreement.
Okay. All right. Did he tell you? First of all, did you propose that agreement to him?
I had no reason to.
Okay. So you didn't?
No.
Okay. So you don't know. Did he make any affirmative statements like, I'll certainly allow Mr. Whitehead around my child unsupervised no matter what you say, or something to that effect?
Up until May 5th, he claimed to not have even known Mr. Whitehead. So that wasn't discussed.
So I'm going to take you back, make sure that my question is clear. May 26th. Okay. You know, he's out of the hospital. All right. And you told us that your concerns, I want to remind you, your concerns are that Lydia was around someone who was on probation for drugs and that Mr. Whitehead was, quote, affiliated, your term, with Amber. So those are your concerns. Those were the danger to the physical or health or safety to the child that allowed you to remove. And so my question to you is this: if based on those dangers that you discussed, that you told us, if he agreed to just not allow this man around this child, what is the substantial risk of continuing danger to allow Lydia back?
Objection, ask and answer.
Overruled.
The danger is that I believe that he would not follow that agreement.
Okay. All right. So we'll stop there. Let's go back to the family plan of service. Okay.
Okay.
All right. There is testimony before this court that he is not allowed, that Aaron is not allowed unsupervised access to Amber Herring absent a drug test. Were you present for that? Or actually, I'll just ask you. I'm not sure that's actually an evidence. Do you know that to be the case?
That Mr. Poston is supposed to drug test Amber Herring before long visits?
Yes. Okay. You heard Amber say she hasn't seen her child since March, right?
Yes.
Okay. You heard Amber say that part of that reason she hadn't seen him was because Mr. Poston is a stickler for following the court order. You remember her testifying to that?
I do remember that.
You remember Mr. Poston telling this court, just as Mr. Rush alluded to earlier, that he wouldn't allow Amber around because it was a violation of the court order. You remember that?
Yes.
So just to make sure the record is crystal clear on this. So the reason the department is saying that Lydia cannot be returned to Aaron Poston, the substantial risk of continuing danger, is that you personally don't believe that he would follow the agreement. Am I summarizing that accurately?
I know he's not following the agreement.
But my question is this, that the substantial risk of a continuing danger, which is, you understand, something the court would have to find in order to allow for removal under 262-201, is that you, Christina Gonzalez, do not personally believe that Aaron Poston would abide by a court order not allowing Matt Whitehead unsupervised contact with a child.
Yes, I believe that. And
okay.
Objection on response to
What?
Sustained.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the objection.
Non-responsive.
Thank you.
Did you hear me?
Okay. I did, Your Honor, and we would pass the witness.
Okay, thank you. Give me one moment.
Ms. Gonzalez, you said that you had expressed concerns on May 5th to Mr. Poston about Mr. Whitehead. Did you ever directly tell him he was not to be around Lydia?
no. There was no reason to.
Objection. Asked and answered, or non-responsive, I'm sorry.
Sustained.
Please try to just answer my questions, Ms. Gonzalez. Do you think that he would have said, okay, I won't let him around?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Has Mr. Poston has he been in compliance with the court order to date?
I don't believe he has.
Have you ever done an unannounced visit and Ms. Herring was present when she was not supposed to be?
I've done unannounced visits and I did not have access to the home, and I did not have
objection, non-responsive. That was a yes or no question, Ms. Gonzalez. Please try to answer my questions directly.
Your Honor, I'd ask that you make a ruling before Ms. Allen instructs the witness.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And listen, we're all getting pretty punchy right now. I would ask everyone to please just ask the question, answer only the question, and let everyone complete their question and their answer before we go to the next one. Please continue, Ms. Allen.
So just for clarification, that was a no. Ms. Herring was never present when you did an unannounced visit.
I can't answer that. I'm not sure if she was there or not. I didn't have access to the home to be able to see.
Okay. When you have been inside the home, how many times have you made unannounced visits that you've been inside the home?
One unannounced.
Was Ms. Herring present?
I don't know. I didn't have access to look.
Okay. So you haven't, is it your testimony that you haven't been monitoring this child and visiting her and checking up on her?
No, I've had visits with them. That was just the one unannounced visit. The previous unannounced visits, he was not home. I've made several unannounced visits, but he was not home.
Okay. And has Ms. Herring been present at those times?
Objection, asked and answered. She said she's not been able to get in the home. So she doesn't know.
I'll clarify, Judge.
Well, sustain the objection if you'll clarify, Ms. Allen.
Was Ms. Herring present at any of the visits that you have had in the home?
Yes.
Okay. Was she authorized to be present?
Yes.
And how come you didn't go and talk to the Bushes when you did the removal?
Objection, asked and answered. I think she said she only heard about the Bushes at the last hearing when Mr. Stilson asked her the same question.
Overruled. You can answer that, Ms. Gonzalez.
I was unaware that she was at the Bushes the weekend of.
Were you aware that she did unsupervised visits with the Bushes over the weekend?
I was aware, yes.
And it never crossed your mind to reach out to them to see if she had been there?
No.
And when you physically picked Lydia up, where was she at?
Daycare.
And that was on the 16th?
Correct.
Was that a Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. And when you became aware that Mr. Poston was in the hospital, did you drive down to the hospital to visit him?
I was told that he was out of town hospital.
That's not what I asked. Did
No.
you drive there to visit him?
No.
And it is your testimony that Mr. Whitehead being affiliated with the mother of the child of this case is what makes him concerning?
And his drug history.
Are you referring to the singular charge that he's on probation for?
I believe there were 2 charges, but that's one of them, yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Ladd?
Earlier, you stated you don't believe that Mr. Poston would follow an order or an agreement to prevent contact between Lydia and Mr. Whitehead. Why do you believe that?
Because I don't believe he was following it between Lydia and Amber Herring.
Have you been given the name prior to this hearing of Miss Elisa Gardner for placement?
Yes.
And have you or To Engage had the opportunity to run her criminal and CPS history?
That would be To Engage that would be doing that. I wouldn't have anything to do with that.
Okay. Do you know if they've done that?
I don't know.
Okay. On the day Lydia was removed, was she able to go to her graduation that night?
No.
Okay. And do you know why not?
I don't know without it being hearsay, but I was told.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'll pass the witness.
Thank you.
No more questions.
Mr. Stilson, any other questions for Ms. Gonzalez?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Allen?
Your Honor, just one. When you spoke to Mr. Poston when he was in the hospital and told you that Mr. Whitehead had Lydia, did he seem like he was in the right state of mind?
Yes.
Did you guys discuss whether or not he was on any medication?
That's 2 questions, Your Honor.
I'm overruled. I'm going to let her continue.
I didn't specifically ask him that question.
Had you discussed whether or not he had just had surgery?
Yes.
That's it, Your Honor.
Anything further, Ms. Ladd?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Rush, you may call your next witness, if any.
Department rests.
Thank you. Mr. Stilson, any witnesses at this time?
No, Your Honor, but I would ask for a closing.
I'm sorry?
No, but he would ask for a closing.
Closing argument.
Oh, thank you.
But otherwise, we rest and close.
Ms. Allen, any witnesses at this time?
Judge, I'd just like to briefly recall my client. I know everyone's tired. I'm sorry.
Ms. Herring, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
may proceed, Ms. Allen.
Amber, did you express concerns about Lydia's foster home to anyone To Engage?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was that?
The woman who supervised our visit yesterday was named Melissa.
Okay.
And she wrote
And okay, so, all right, let's try not to talk over each other. And when you were at rehab, were you allowed access to your phone?
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
All right, nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Rush?
No questions.
Mr. Stilson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Ladd?
No questions.
Thank you. Any other witnesses, Ms. Allen?
So I'll rest, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Ladd, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Do you rest?
I do, yes.
Do you have a, Ms. Rush, do we have a quick close?
Department will reserve my closing for my closing.
Thank you. Mr. Stilson?
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, the court's well aware of Texas Family Code 262-201 with respect to adversary hearing. I won't belabor the point, but I would like to point out just a couple of things for record purposes. Of course, as the court knows, the court shall order the return of the child to the parents entitled to possession for which the child is removed unless the court finds sufficient evidence to satisfy a person of ordinary prudence and caution that, 1, there was a danger to the physical health or safety of the child. Remind the court that we asked Ms. Gonzalez about that. She said the 2 dangers that she believed were the dangers of the physical health or safety of the child was one, that Lydia was with someone on probation for drugs, and two, Mr. Whitehead was affiliated with Ms. Herring. I don't believe that would in itself would provide a danger to the physical health or safety of the child, as there's absolutely no evidence before this court that Mr. Whitehead poses or posed, more importantly, posed a danger to the physical health or safety of the child. The only evidence before this court is that he took her to daycare from the Bushes. That's it. I would also point out to the court that reasonable efforts have been made to enable the child to return home. This one's easy because Ms. Gonzalez admitted she didn't do any. She said that she was aware that Mr. Poston got out of the hospital on May 26, 2023. It appears that her only concerns, and remember, if we look back at the two things, are regarding Mr. Whitehead. Instead of asking Mr. Poston if you would not allow Mr. Whitehead to be around Lydia, instead, she just assumes that he wouldn't do it. She didn't even bother to ask it. But it doesn't matter because no reasonable efforts were made to enable this child to return home. And lastly, of course, there is no evidence that there is a substantial risk of continuing danger if the child's return home. There is evidence before this court from Mr. Bush, as well as I think everyone else, that Mr. Poston is a loving father. Again, the only time that there is any evidence that he was he had.
Mr. Stilson, we have lost Miss Allen.
Oh no. Okay.
It's 5:13. If you'd like to go ahead and continue, we'll see if she joins us.
I'll text her real quick.
Do you want me to wait or?
No, go ahead and continue.
All right, I'm almost done. There's no substantial risk of continuing danger if the child's returned home. There is no evidence to believe that Aaron Poston would allow this child to be unsupervised with Mr. Whitehead, even assuming for the sake of argument that constitutes some sort of danger to the child. So there's no evidence of. I'd point out to the court that it's undisputed that the only reason that he had Mr. Whitehead pick up the child is he was literally care flighted with a flesh-eating bacteria in and out of surgeries. The department has not met their burden. And I point out to the court, of course, that the court shall order the return of the child unless all three prongs are satisfied. There was no evidence that there was any danger to the physical health or safety of the child. There's certainly no reasonable that the urgent need for protection required the immediate removal. There's no evidence of that. And lastly, of course, Ms. Gonzalez admitted she made no reasonable efforts to enable the child to return home, which she's obligated to do by statute. And there is certainly no evidence that returning it to Lydia and Mr. Poston today, and the court, of course, can order a caveat if the court really feels that it's necessary that Mr. Whitehead not be around Lydia. That's certainly something that Mr. Poston has no problem with. And so for those reasons, Judge, we would ask that you deny the court's petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ladd?
Your Honor, I'm trying to consider here the concerns I have, what Lydia wants, and then the evidence that's been presented today. I do have concerns about Mr. Poston's protective capacity. However, I don't think it's in Lydia's best interest to physically be removed from his home. I would propose to the court today to grant the department TMC and order a monitored return with Mr. Poston.
And there's Miss Allen.
Sorry. No, Judge, I'm assuming that my position closely aligns with Mr. Stilson, so I'm not sure what all he said, but I'm sure he covered it. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Stilson's arguments specifically categorize wording by Ms. Gonzalez. First of all, the urgent need for protection required immediate removal. Yes, she said it was because of Matt Whitehead's convictions and because of she's the word affiliation. There was evidence that he was with Miss Herring in February 2023. When you look at this and you look at Mr. Poston's own testimony, the issue, because Mr. Whitehead is not a party and he is not a parent, is Mr. Poston's really lousy judgment. Apparently, the only people who didn't know about the Bushes were the department. Mr. Poston knew about the Bushes. Ms. Herring knew about the Bushes. Mr. Bush testified that Mr. Whitehead picked the child up, but didn't testify that the child was going to be coming back. So where the heck was the kid going to live? Mr. Poston stayed 10 more days in the hospital. It is not unreasonable to believe that Mr. Whitehead was taking care of the child. Even though Mr. Stilson ended up...
Your Honor, I'm going to object as it assumes facts, not evidence.
it's a logical conclusion of the testimony. And it's closing.
I'm going to overrule that.
Also, Your Honor, Mr. Bush, I'm sorry, Ms. Gonzalez also testified that she had been told things that indicated to her that Mr. Whitehead and Ms. Herring Ms. Herring had had contact outside of the court orders from the participation case, which this court has previously ruled Mr. Poston was not in compliance with. Ms. Gonzalez.
Let me stop you right there. I apologize. Ms. Herring, will you quit filing your nails, please? This is a court hearing. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Rush.
That's okay. Ms. Gonzalez said, based upon conversations she's had with people, she believes Mr. Poston is not following the previous court orders. Okay. I understand that you didn't see it. Well, Your Honor, technically, Ms. Gonzalez did not see Mr. Whitehead pick up Lydia and take her to daycare. That's not the way CPS works. Police don't see usually people actually commit murder. You have to rely upon what you learn. Based upon what Ms. Gonzalez was told, she reached that conclusion. Sometimes, and I don't have the case law in front of me, I apologize, but there has been court rulings that says sometimes reasonable efforts equal no efforts. Mr. Poston doesn't believe he's done anything wrong. You heard, oh, golly gee willikers. Amber went into rehab in April. I haven't seen her use drugs since then. I have no concerns about her. That's a really lousy judgment call. Ms. Herring has 3 convictions for endangering 3 children because of drugs. Ms. Herring hasn't been taking drug tests. Mr. Poston doesn't see a problem with any of that. Mr. Poston doesn't see a problem with Mr. Whitehead because he's known him since, now he's saying since April, and he's not seen him anything that indicates he's a problem, even though Ms. Gonzalez testified in opposition to what Mr. Poston said, that she told Mr. Poston in February that Mr. Whitehead was on probation for drugs. And you heard Mr. Bush, Mr. Poston's good friend, say generically, it is bad judgment when you have decent human beings, for instance, the Bushes, who are willing to take care of the child, and you opt for someone who's on probation for drugs to take care of the kid. That is a continuing danger. Ms. Herring's record and Ms. Herring's lack of going back to rehab, and I like her words, there's no, she hasn't been back to rehab because we removed the child. She didn't go back to rehab May 10th. She didn't go back to rehab. She stayed out not because her grandmother died, but because her grandmother fell and was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Her life is a continuing danger to this child. Mr. Poston's blindness when it comes to Ms. Herring and her friends is a continuing danger to this child. The department, there is no effort the department could have made other than removing the child to get Mr. Poston to lift the blinders from his eyes and see the dangers he keeps putting his child in. We'd ask for it to grant the department TMC and reset the status hearing.
Thank you. Anything else that needs to come in front of the court at this time?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Ladd, no. Mr. Stilson?
We've given a close. Not at this time, Judge.
Ms. Allen? Shaking her head no.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, the court has reviewed the requirements under 263, 201 regarding the requirements to maintain custody. The court does not find that the department has met its burden to show that there was a substantial risk of continuing danger if the child is returned. The court is going to dismiss, not continue the department as temporary managing conservator. The court is unable to dismiss the petition. So at this point in time, the court is not going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator.
Your Honor, at this time, if the court is no longer going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator, we will be filing a motion to dismiss this case. But the participation case still is pending, Your Honor.
Yes.
If that's okay.
I am going to make the order that Mr. Whitehead cannot have any access to this child. And
Are you
I'm
making
going
that
to-
order in the other case, Your Honor, since this case will be dismissed?
Yes, that Mr. Whitehead cannot have any access to this child. I'm also going to order that Ms. Herring is to undergo a hair follicle and a UA, as well as Mr. Poston, both of those to include fentanyl and an expanded opiate. And the current pending hair follicle or UA that the child is, that is currently pending on the child, is to be filed in cause number 2022. Oh,
yes, ma'am.
Anything else, Ms. Ladd, that I need to clarify?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Stilson? And if you'll please speak with Miss Martha tomorrow about that, then everyone can coordinate.
Right.
And Miss Allen, if you will just shake your head, is there anything else that needs to be addressed from my end? And she is shaking her head no. Good luck to you, Miss Herring. Good luck to you, Mr. Poston. And thank you for your work on this case, Miss Gonzalez.
And Your Honor, before, we go off the record, but before we hang up, Christina, I need you to call Aaron after this is over and arrange for the child to be returned to him, please. Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
And we will go off the record.